You say you're busy, it's your answer to everything. A badge of honor, a proof of worth, a way of saying I matter because I'm overwhelmed. And you wear exhaustion like a Purple Heart, brag about 4 hours of sleep, skip lunch and call it dedication, answer emails at midnight and feel virtuous. But here's the paradox that will make you want to throw your calendar into a fire. The busier you are, the less you actually get done. Not because you have less time, but because busyness isn't productivity. It's the absence of prioritization dressed up as effort. A few years back, Harvard researchers tracked knowledge workers and found that the ones who reported being extremely busy completed 40% fewer high-value tasks than the moderately busy. They weren't doing more. They were doing more things, small, urgent, low-impact activities that felt like work but weren't. Answering emails, attending meetings, responding to pings, putting out fires, and at the end of the day they had moved nothing important forward, yet they were exhausted, so they felt like heroes. This is the American busyness trap. We've confused activity with achievement, motion with progress, and exhaustion with dedication. The neuroscience is straightforward. Your brain's executive function, the part that prioritizes and makes decisions, has a limited tank. And every time you switch tasks, you burn gas. Every time you check your phone, you burn gas. Every time you say yes to a low-value request, you spend fuel that could have gone to something that actually matters. So by noon, most Americans have already depleted their executive function on trivialities, and the rest of the day is zombie work. Shallow, reactive, forgettable, while the one thing that would have moved the needle sits untouched. The American twist is that we've turned busyness into a moral virtue. A quiet day with 3 deep hours feels lazy. A chaotic day with 50 shallow interruptions feels productive. So we optimize for the feeling of busyness instead of the reality of output. Schedule back-to-back meetings because an empty calendar looks like failure. Answer every Slack instantly because a delayed reply feels rude. Say yes to every request because saying no feels like letting people down. And then we wonder why we're drowning. Here's the reversal that makes this worth sitting through twice. The most effective Americans are not the busiest. They're the laziest, not laziest in the sense of doing nothing but strategically idle. Understanding that deep work requires boredom, creativity requires empty space, saying no to 99 things is the only way to say yes to the one thing that matters. So they protect their mornings, turn off notifications, batch email into 1 hour, leave meetings that don't need them, and when someone says, "You must be so busy," they say, "No, I'm just focused." A declaration of war against the busyness cult. Let me tell you about Diana, a marketing director with 15 browser tabs open and a calendar like a Jackson Pollock painting, who thrived under pressure until she had a panic attack in a budget meeting and had to be walked to the emergency room. Her doctor said, "You're not thriving, you're surviving poorly," and her boss gave her 2 weeks off. The first day she felt guilty, checked email constantly, but then something cracked. She went for a walk without her phone, sat in a park, watched a squirrel for 20 minutes, and realized she hadn't had an original thought in months, just reactions. When she returned, she implemented a radical rule: no meetings before 11 a.m., no email before 10, no Slack on her phone, and within 3 months, her team's output was up 60%. Not because she was working harder, but because she was finally working on the right things. And she discovered the chapane. People who complained she was less responsive were the same ones whose emergencies were never real, just their own failure to plan. The American cognitive paradox sits right here. We worship busyness, but busyness is the enemy of excellence. We glorify the hustle, but the hustle is a drug that makes us feel important while making us useless. The only ones who escape the busyness trap are the ones brave enough to be slow, doing fewer things better, resting without guilt, saying no without explanation, and in a culture that treats rest as rebellion, they look lazy, but they are the ones who actually ship, who have time for their families, who will still have a career in 10 years because they didn't burn out at 40. Right now, your brain might want to argue that your busyness is different, that your job really requires 12-hour days, that you can't say no. Maybe that's true. But ask yourself, when was the last time you had a completely unstructured hour, finished a task and sat in silence instead of reaching for your phone, left work at 5 p.m. and didn't check email until morning? If those answers make you uncomfortable, your busyness might be a cage, not a crown. The question from the beginning: why do we treat busyness like a status symbol when the busiest people are the least effective, has an answer that only the second viewing fully reveals. Busyness is not a sign of importance. It's a sign of poor boundaries, and the most important people in the world aren't the ones with the fullest calendars. They're the ones with the emptiest calendars and the fullest attention. So now, if something in you exhaled, if the impulse stirred to send this to the person who answers emails during dinner or their kid's recital, that's not about me. It's the recognition that exhaustion is a warning light, not a medal, and sharing it might be the first act of rebellion against the cult of busy. Now go do one thing today, slowly and well. That's an order.